Good afternoon, everyone. This is Rakesh Rao, Executive Editor of Industrial Product Finder magazine, welcoming you for IPF's exclusive virtual industrial roundtable on gearboxes. Before we begin today's proceeding, let me share a few words on Industrial Product Finder. Industrial Product Finder is published by ASAP Info Global Group, known for its wide range of publications like Construction World, Equipment India, Indian Textile Journal, among others. Every month, IPF reaches to around 60,000 readers through its magazines and website, that is IPF Online. Industrial Product Finder also hosts the annual Industrial Excellence Awards for innovative products, fastest growing companies, best entrepreneur, and emerging startups. In fact, the next year, that is January 2021, we will be hosting our first in IPF Industrial Excellence Forum virtual awards, conference, and expo event. In addition to that, IPF also offers industry news on WhatsApp, which is known as iNow. So coming back to our today's agenda, gearbox is a system which the mechanical in energy is transferred from one device to another and is used to increase torque while reducing speed. Gears and their mechanical characteristics are widely employed to transmit motion and power and to reduce or increase speed and torque in a variety of industrial applications like automobiles, motorcycle, wind turbines, and machines. To discuss the current status and future trends in the gearbox industry, we have with us some of the leading industry experts. To start with, we have Mr. Seshagiri Ramchandra, MD Gears and Gear Drives India Private Limited. Mr. Seshagiri is an industry veteran with over 50 years of experience. We also have Mr. P.L. Muthusekhar, MD Nord Drive Systems Private Limited, who has been associated with gearbox industry for more than 3 decades now. Mr. Vishwa Mandal, CTO Schaeffler India, who has over 27 years of industry experience in R&D space. Then from the user industry, we have Mr. Sanjay Bhise, Senior GM Design at Electromac Material Handling Systems India Private Limited. Mr. Bhise is a specialist in design, engineering, and product development with over 20 years of experience. To give a manufacturing angle to gearbox, we have Mr. Rajesh Gawale, Head Nimble Machines, a strategic business unit of UCAM Private Limited. Mr. Gawale has 20 years of experience in the areas like rotary tables and high-speed CNC gear hobbing machines. So on behalf of IPF, I welcome you all on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The aim of this roundtable is to track changes taking place in the gearbox industry, effects of end-user industry trends on gearboxes, and also the emerging opportunities for the industry. To begin the proceedings, I would like Mr. Seshagiri to shed light on the present status of gearbox market in India in terms of say market size, gear types, and also some of the trends.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. Gearboxes are largely used in various sectors. Gearbox is a basic terminology, but it finds use in automobile, both in two-wheeler, four-wheeler, plus then agricultural machinery, then industrial machinery, for process machinery for steel, cement, sugar, construction and power, plastic packaging, printing, then defense of India, and also renewable energy. It's a large market. Talking about the size, right now post-COVID, there are now hopes and the orders have started trickling in. probably we should wait for another 2-3 more months, as Mr. Muthusekhar will accept with me, to understand and give a clear picture on the size of the increase in the gearbox market. Of course, it will be only to the pre-COVID level it will come and merge with, but post-COVID we'll have to wait and see. Gear is of course a line where gearboxes are always required, and it is a very prime line, and around the globe gearboxes are required both for all the various applications that we talked about. Thank you.
Mr. Muthusekhar, would you like to add to what Mr. Seshagiri just said?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Rakesh, and thank you, IPF. In fact, the people know IPL more than IPF, but IPF started in 1972. Those days, early days of my career in 80s, we used to use only two things. One is the Yellow Pages, the other one is Industrial Product Finder, to go to customers to understand the market. So it was very useful. So it's very nice to discuss on gears. In my opinion, gears is the first form of engineered product, innovated product by human, next to wheels. So that's the way gears has a predominantly a better place in the various industries. Like Mr. Seshagiri said, that agriculture machines to spacecraft to satellite, everywhere you will, including your watches, you will find the gears. So coming to the market point of view, even pre-COVID situation in the last year, the market was not good. So even reaching a pre-COVID itself will take a little longer time. In my opinion, I think last June onwards, we have been seeing a slowdown in the market, because the gears are used in various types of industries, and we have seen in general the business, not only in India, but even globally also, it has not grown very big in comparison to 2018 or 2017. So this shows that there is a slight dip in the market. And in the COVID conditions, I think there was an extreme dip. Probably the historical lockdown in India has brought it down. If you want, I can tell the kind of numbers in terms of what is the business. In India, the business is about 6,500 to 6,700 crores. That's the size of the market. Gears market is available, and gears are always coming by two types. One is high speed, one is low speed. So low speed are mostly running less than 1,800 RPM, either input or output. And high speed means it is more than 1,800 RPM especially for steam turbines, gas compressors, gas turbines. So those kind of applications, high speed is used. So there are two types of industries in the gear. One is high speed and low speed, but we will be predominantly talking of low speed because that's where the large chunk of market is available. And here you have different types. You have bevel helical, you have home, you have heli-home, you have spur. Many types of gears are available. So we always decide on the peripheral velocity or the tip speed of the gears. So that is what determines whether it is a high-speed gear or low-speed gear. Anything more? If you want, we can discuss on each and every segment. What's the, like for example, geared motors, what's the size of business? Gearboxes, what's the size of business? Planetary types, windmill gearboxes. So what's the kind of market size in India we have? That we can, maybe over the discussions, we can take it forward.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Muthusekhar, for an elaborate introduction to your the gearbox topics. Bearings play a very key role in smooth operation of gearboxes. Mr. Mandal, why selection of right bearings is important for a better gearbox performance?
Thank you. This is a wonderful question. So there are a few points I would like to bring here. For example, to start with, industrial gearboxes are becoming increasingly compact with a smaller size, with a design envelope, and where power level are continuously increasing. That's one trend we see as far as the gearboxes are concerned. for industrial and probably for automotive machine as well. Now, this high increase of power density within a small space increases the demand to select the right type of bearing to be used. That's one point to be noted. The point number two, in modern industrial environment, the mechanical drive systems are required to deliver reliability and the performance in a very wide variety conditions, so that conditions are day to day changing a lot of new type of conditions are getting adapted there. So that selection of the right bearing in the gearbox will give the high degree of maintenance operation. That's very critical here. And this will also give a very reliable and cost-effective services. So that's the point number two here. Now, the third point is that in a gearbox, there are a number of bearings. There are different type of bearings in a particular gearbox. Now, each of the bearings has been deployed there for a specific purpose. It's not that all bearing does the same work. And they also work in a very different operating conditions. Thus, bearing requires a different type of designs and a different gears design and the arrangement of the gears. Also, the lubricating systems are some of the critical factors that defines the bearing design and thus the selection of the bearing. Now, to make this life, the such type of complex life to be very simple, in our company Schaeffler, we have developed a software with last 70 years of experimentation. The software is called Bearing X. Bearing X. Now, this is a typical software which has got a correlation of 99.999%. So it's very close to the perfect software for the selection of the bearing for any gearboxes and so on. So this type of a software will help to select the right bearing on a wide different applications, and this can become a handy tool for the end customers. Also the gearbox manufacturer, gearbox designers. So that's how the selection of the right type of bearing plays a very critical role, as there is a dynamic shift we see here as far as the industry is concerned.
Thank you, Mr. Mandal. Mr. Bise, could you please share with us the end user's perspective on the gearbox in terms of importance of gearbox for your industry, and also the key parameters required to select a gearbox, and what are your expectations from the gearbox manufacturers?
Yeah. Good afternoon, Rakesh and all. It is good that IPF has arranged for this particular webinar along with the users, manufacturers, and the machining. So all in one, we are having this particular interactive sessions here. So it is wonderful that it is a good webinar arranged by the IFF team. From the end user's perspective, gearbox is the key element in the machinery and as a whole assembly in the crane. So when we select a gearbox, the gearboxes are primarily selected based on the operation, the usage, the application wherein this particular gearbox is performing, the torque, the ratio, and the environmental conditions. So these are very crucial aspects while selecting of any gearboxes. So when we say about all these parameters, it is prime most important that the gearbox manufacturers should share the design parameters and the considerations which has happened for design while designing of these particular gearboxes. So in all, we can take a complete review about the design parameters and select an appropriate kind of a gearbox. In addition to this, the service factor plays a very vital role. It is very important aspect in selection of the gearbox. Currently in various users industries, the service factor is becoming a universal norm irrespective of the application and the usage of equipment. For example, in our industry, the workshop duty crane and the process duty crane, both are getting considered as a one part of the service factor, wherein it requires to have a brainstorming and we requires to have the clear streamlining about the process, about selection of the gearbox, wherein gearbox manufacturers can have this particular thought and provide some kind of indications related to these particular aspects and consider all the parameters involved in the selection of the gearboxes. So these are the two aspects which we require to consider in the selection of the gearboxes. Now, when you mentioned about what is expected from the user side, from the user side, we require to have the parameters like the configuration portal. When we say about configuration portal, the selection of the gearbox should happen throughout the portal from the user side, and this particular portal has to be handed over to the users, wherein the inquiry to order conversion or the order time gets minimized, and wherein we can have the faster response between the users and the gearbox manufacturers. And this configuration portal helps to identify each and every aspect involved in the application and the uses of the equipment, and select the appropriate kind of a gearbox for that kind of application. So that is one aspect related to the configuration portal. The second aspect will come into the spares portal. When I say spares portal, the users face a lot of challenges when it requires to identify a right combination of the spares component during his breakdown, and it is prime most important to recover this particular equipment and make this particular equipment available for the uses and reduce the downtime. So when I say about that, the spares portal becomes very important aspect, and by developing such kind of portals by the gearbox manufacturers, we can able to identify which kind of components are involved in the gearbox, and subsequently it is easy for traceability of the components in the gearboxes. That's how we can able to cater a faster and quick response can be given to the services of the gearboxes. So that is the point number 2. And the point number 3 will be, as far as all of you know from the user side, the gearbox is also one of the key aspect in the lean management system, and that is the component which takes the high lead item and the delivery of the equipment. So as we are currently following, and we have seen in the recent past, that modular design has been approached for the gear brake motors industry, but the similar kind of approach required to be done extensively for the gearboxes, wherein we can have the bottlenecks in the gearbox manufacturing can be limited, and gearboxes can be made available at a faster rate, and that's how we can give and cater to the quicker delivery to the customers and improve upon the customer satisfactions. So these are the 3 aspects which from the user side we expect from the gearbox manufacturers. That is one, configuration portals, second is spares portal, and third one is the modular kind of design approach to cater the faster delivery.
Thanks, Mr. Bhise, for your insightful on the end users expectations on the gearbox industry. Coming to gearbox production processes, Mr. Gawale, what are the key challenges faced by companies during gear manufacturing, and also what kind of changes are you seeing in gear cutting and shaping processes?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Rakesh Rao, and thank you for IPF arranging this beautiful seminar discussing about gear machining, gearboxes, their applications, and things like that. Coming to the gear manufacturing processes, as everybody knows, the gear manufacturing, the main process is gear hobbing, and then based on the criticality of the gears, then we have the finishing processes like gear shaping, gear grinding, and gear honing. Now, if you look at the different application, the processes are selected based on the applications. Not every gear we need to go through the finishing processes like shaping or gear grinding or hobbing, or not hobbing, it is honing. Majority of the gears are generally finished using gear hobbing machine. Typically, the accuracies called for are DIN 7, and then those are achieved in gear hobbing process itself. But there are applications wherein you need a higher class of accuracies, let's say DIN 5, DIN 6, and that's when you need to go for the further finishing operations, which are generally achieved through grinding, that is gear grinding and gear honing. Now coming to the challenges which gear manufacturers face, of course, producing the accuracy is a major challenge, because if you look at a gear industry, and particularly an Indian gear industry, if you look at, it is predominantly dominated by a used gear cutting machines. And that's become a challenge to produce the quality of the gears which is required by the industry. The used gear machines are having less initial investment, but they cannot give you accuracy which is required, by user industry. Let's say gearbox manufacturer or an automobile. Automobile is one of the largest consumer of the gears and gearboxes. But why are this gear manufacturing units are relying on to these machines? And the important reason behind that is the cost per piece, what is demanded by the customer. It is a major challenge for the gear cutting industry to meet. There is every year on year there's a pressure to reduce the cost, whereas your overheads are going up, your raw materials are going up, your process cost is going up. And that's when companies are thinking to reduce initial investment, and then so that their cost per piece will come down. But because of the non-productive machines and poor quality output, instead of saving on the cost per piece, we rather end up spending more, and we have the problem with the cost. So that is a major challenge. Second important challenge for the gear industry is the skilled labors. Gears are a skilled jobs, as Mr. Muthusekhar and Mr. Seshagiri has already mentioned. They are very technologically advanced component, and you need a skilled labors to produce this. And that has been a problem in the industry for a long time. With the COVID coming in, that has become more challenge, because the migrant laborers, which are generally, they are there in the industry working for manufacturing sectors, they've all gone back to their hometowns, and we have now a vacuum, and the laborers are not available. And that's when we need to look at the de-skilling of these processes. De-skilling, when I say, it comes from different angles. One of the way of de-skilling is going for automation. You automate the process, so your dependency on the human are minimum, or the skill levels required for producing these components are minimum, and so that you can produce consistently, and the results will also be consistent. So there is a thinking that if initial investment is low, then my cost per piece can be higher, and that is a myth. I think people have started realizing this, and people are now coming up and asking for the machines with automations, which can produce high volume production at best quality, and even though they are expensive, they can give you a best cost per piece. So these are the two major points which are today challenges for gear industry. And because of the COVID and uncertainty in the business levels, it is becoming more and more difficult. Now, as Mr. Seshagiri and Mr. Muthusekhar has mentioned, that business has started to grow up, but there is still uncertainty. How much it is going to go up? Can I invest? Can I put in the capitals? And that is a big question mark at this moment. People are a little hesitant, and they are not going forward with their investment the way they were doing, let's say, a couple of years back. I think these are the challenges. We have to wait and watch for a couple of months, and then the many things will get answered in the due course. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Mr. Gawale. Now you just touched upon COVID pandemic and its effect in general on the industry. As we know, all the industries have suffered because of COVID pandemic. So, Mr. Muthusekhar, what has been the impact of COVID-19 on gearbox demand, and more importantly, are you seeing a revival of demand in Q2 and Q3?
As I told that historic lockdown in India has put the business in a degrowth and slowdown, and even pre-COVID levels was also not that good compared to the previous years. So looking at this scenario, I would estimate somewhere around 20-25% the market size itself has gone down, especially in the gear motor gearbox industry. That's what the numbers I also get from the competitor friends. Almost everybody has been down in terms of previous year numbers. So if you ask specific about Nord, we are close to 30% as on today. Levels, we are less than year on year of 2019. But the situation is completely different globally. Globally, Nord is doing very well in China, in the US, in Germany, in many parts of the world. Our business down is only 2.6% precisely compared to last year. So that means globally, there is not a big dip, but in India there is a big dip, and that's in the tune of more than 10 times of what is the global scale. But coming back to your question on Q2 and Q3, I hope even Q2 and Q3 also will not reach the pre-COVID levels. The pre-COVID levels will start firing only from the first quarter of 21-22. That means from April onwards, things can be better. That doesn't mean that last 2-3 months not been promising. Yes, it's been promising, but it's only an improvement of June, July, those kind of months. Every month we are growing by about 20-30% more than the previous month. So probably it will take the entire Indian financial year by a down of close to 20% at least.
Okay. Coming to Mr. Seshagiri, what is your take on demand pickup in the remaining quarters of 2021?
Yeah, certain sectors like agriculture, defense, these have not gone down because they work in a different way of procurement. Our output for the agricultural machineries are almost same, and defense has been going through the same cycle of requirement. But I agree with Mr. Muthusekhar totally that industrial gearboxes for process machinery, that has come down. And even if somebody places an order on you, they don't have money to pick up. That is the, we have a lot of finished goods lying with in our factory, just because we said the term so you pay and take it. And I think it's a period of uncertainty is the right word. And no one really knows when we will level up to the pre-COVID level, and which itself was having a dip. But if you can quickly change the product mix to suit whatever is the demand, that's what the MSMEs are specialized to do that. Possibly you can survive much better. This is my take.
Okay. So coming to maintenance aspects of gearboxes, the proper functioning of gearboxes is critical to ensure the safety, the machine efficiency, and enhance the productivity. So, Mr. Bhise, could you throw light on the importance of gearbox maintenance?
Yeah, absolutely. See, the proper maintenance is a very much important aspects to ensure the life of this particular gearbox and to ensure the performance of this particular gearbox. So when we say about these particular aspects, so during the user side, we always take adequate care for mounting of these particular gearboxes to ensure the alignment in the gearboxes. So when we mount these particular gearboxes with the due consideration of its location, So we, in that particular way, we ensure that the forces which are coming are ideal and there is no undesired forces coming onto this particular gearboxes. So from the user side, we take adequate care to handle this particular topic and eliminate the maintenance aspect about it. But however, this particular issue related to the maintenance required to be handled on a very periodical basis and required to be done due care about it. So additional sensors what we provide. So we require to have the vibration sensor, the temperature sensors into the gearbox as an inbuilt feature, wherein we can able to gather the issues related to the vibrations, the issues related to the temperature rise due to various aspects related to the oil leakage or the reduction in the oil level. So these particular aspects are very much crucial to achieve the efficiency of this entire system and the whole machinery as a good performing equipment for the end user. So that's how we like to address particular these things. And when we are going for the automation into this particular era and for this particular gearbox industry, we require to combine mechanical and the electronics aspects together and try to achieve this particular thing to eliminate such kind of issues and reduce the maintenance aspects. And by that way, we can enhance the performance and the efficiency of the entire system.
Okay. Mr. Gawale, would you like to share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, of course. You know, maintenance is a basic hygiene. Leave about mechanical element, even our own bodies, we need to maintain. And if you don't maintain, you know what can happen. Let me now address this point from the point of view of the gear hobbing machines which we supply in the market. Gear hobbing is a quite capital intensive machine, and when the customer buy it, and customer would like to utilize the machine to the fullest extent. I mean, generally they use it 24/7. Each gear hobbing machine will at least have a half a dozen gearboxes, if not more. When it comes to automation, you know, the number of gearboxes will increase. And if you don't maintain these gearboxes, what can happen? You know, you have a frequent failures, and the machine's reliability becomes a question. You don't have an output, and the end result, customers are unhappy, your schedules are not met. So from the point of view of your output, from the point of view of your quality output, maintaining gearboxes are very critical and very, very important. Now, when I say that the maintenance are important, but there is one more aspect to this. See, when you build a machine, or there is any machine, when we talk about gear hobbing or any other machine, the gearboxes are generally not in a position which can be easily accessed and easily maintained. So for that, you need to schedule your maintenance so that you can take the machine down, your productions are not affected. And for that, as Mr. Bise mentioned, you need to have some sensors, some indications that, okay, there is going to be oil level is going down, or oil is getting contaminated, or there is a vibration in the bearing. That means the bearing needs to maintain, or the bearing needs to be replaced. So that these feedbacks are gone to the maintenance guys, and they can take action before there is a breakdown, and their life can be much easy, and the production guys' life is much better. I think these are the few things which we'll have to keep in mind when we build our subsystems. We at UCAM, we are a rotatable manufacturer, and it's nothing but a gearbox, and we are working ourselves to find how can we make the life of a maintenance engineer better. What are the feedbacks we can give so that he can plan his activity and see that the productions are not affected. I think this is what every manufacturer of subsystem have to look at, so that overall machines efficiency is maintained and customers the pains are reduced. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Seshagiri wants to come in, please. Just a minute. I will just unmute you because you are lots of noise coming through. Yeah, tell me.
I think it's the right point what Mr. Rajesh and Mr. Sanjay was mentioning. To my mind, one of the reasons could be that in India, most of the decisions are taken based on the cost of a product. Let me see how I attach it to the maintenance. And Sanjay Bise talked about IoT systems for getting a feedback or ascertain the temperature rise or vibration or oil leakage. Unless the Indian purchase is based upon the technical requirement predominantly over the cost, then only you can even attempt to get such facilities in a gearbox operation. It is really possible to have IoT systems, or it is to avoid a leakage, you buy the right rubber parts, the seals and whatnot. But we struggled to get the right oil seal at a particular time when we are doing a lot of renewable energy products for solar tracking drives. We used to make few hundreds of them. But the parties have started asking whether it will last for 15 years. So we said we don't have a track record, number one. Number two is somebody has to do an advanced aging process. I went up to IIT Chennai and spoke to the head of the department. He said everything is fine. We will do it for you. But it will take 2 years for us to come out with the result, number one. And number two, it will cost you about close to 1 crore rupee. So these kind of challenges are being faced by Indians. First of all, we don't have the R&D bent. I'm happy to see Mr. Biswa Mandal spends a lot of time on the R&D requirement, which is fundamentally required if you want to have a product without much of these nuisance values. Maintenance of the gearboxes from the time I started, which is quite back about 50 years ago till now, there's a tremendous improvement in tribology, in rubber product. There are so many things. But if a person is going to say, no, I don't care what you use, my technical guys have cleared you, but I need at the lowest cost. And this is one mindset we must really change. I'm happy to say that when I supply something to Europe or to United States, they don't really come down so much on your throat for these kind of things, and you can really explain and get away. But this is that I thought I should share it with you as a manufacturer. Yes, Mr.
Mukul also.
Yeah, I have a point. When we talk of maintenance and when we talk of cost, the perception, the thinking has to change. Instead of a cost of a product, it has to be cost of the ownership. So that means when you own the product for a life cycle of 15 years, 20 years, what is the oil you are going to replace? How frequently you are going to replace the oil? What will be its efficiency in case if it fails, or if it oil leaks or a downtime? What is going to be the cost? I think the cost of ownership is more important than the cost of the product, because you can buy a product 20% cheaper, but if you are going to spend more on it, I think it doesn't make sense.
Yes, rightly said, Shekhar. Coming to Mr. Mandal, already Mr. Bise and Gawale has already touched upon the aspect of IoT and continuous monitoring of gearboxes. So, given that, Mr. Mandal, can predictive maintenance offer a solution for this?
Well, let me start with the kind of a change that we are seeing in the marketplace, the customer's perspective and consumer's perspective, technological shift. Now, if you look at today, the mantra for today is a zero downtime. Nobody would like to stop their machine for a single minute, not even second. So mantra is that how somebody can reach towards the zero downtime. That's very clear. Probably this was not that critical. If I go back 10 years or maybe 20 years, machine can wait for maintenance for a few days, okay. But today, everybody is looking at maximizing the productivity. A machine should have zero downtime. Mr. Rajesh talked about. His machine is expected to work 24/7. If the machine is working 24/7, I have zero maintenance time, I have zero downtime. That's very clear. So that is what kind of a trend we see last few years, and more time we pass, I think this will become more important parameter, how we can have a zero maintenance or zero downtime for any kind of a gearboxes applicable for industrial application, also for an automotive application. That's very clear. I think that is what is clear understood. Now with this type of changes in the shift on technology trend, customer expectations and things like that, we also see that there is a demand on a gearbox as a whole needs to be more smaller in size, more compact, more value proposition there without compromising the performance. Okay, that's one part. The second part, we also see the power to weight factor. Power to weight factor has to be maximum, so that material has to be minimum there, least there. Power it has to give maximum. Life it has to give maximum. And the machine or the gearbox has to have a zero downtime. Okay, that's the dimension for, that's the kind of a idealistic scenario for an ideal gearbox for tomorrow, or rather current cloud to tomorrow, right? Now, there is also one more factor here, which is really very dangerous. I would put this word dangerous kind of a trend that you see here. Day by day, the safety factor for every component in the gearbox, talking about seal, motor, gears, bearing, casting, and so on, there has to be a handful of safety factor. With this new change in the dimension trend, there has been a significant compromise in the safety factor for the component. So people would kind of expect that safety factor has to be as close as possible, close to 1, so that the product can become more lean, and it also can have a minimum cost, and also performance has to be as maximum as possible. That means the product has to be near to perfect. That's one demand we see here. Now, looking at this type of a changes, into this marketplace, the predictive maintenance. Now, let me connect to the predictive maintenance. We talked about IoT-based system and things like that. So, a predictive maintenance let you monitor the health of the gearbox for any unpredictable failure. So what it means is that predictive maintenance, if you have a IoT-based condition monitoring system from a remote places in a live way, you can always check the parameter and the performance of every part, behavior, performance of the gearbox from a remote location. So the condition monitoring system that we can monitor the temperature, the vibration, lubrications, and that can be measured during the entire life cycle of the gearboxes. For example, I'll give you a simple example for all of us to kind of understand that. If there is a contamination, like if you have a gear, shaft, there will be wear and tear on the components, things like that. They're likely to be contamination in the oil or the lubrication we have. The time we have more contamination, they are likely to be debris in the oil. Right now, there is one possibility. There is a maintenance handbook, which talks about that at this time, periodic time, you must change the oil. But practically, your oil may further probably work for some more days, some more months, some more years, or it is too late. There is always possibility. Now, if you would like to look for an optimum performance and optimum cost, maximizing the performance of the gearboxes, you must have very live access performance of the gearboxes. For example, if there is a debris of the oil, so that means the lubrication is not behaving optimally, temperature is getting increased on the bearing, on the shaft, and things like that. And if you have this access of data from a remote location, you can plan your maintenance. You can plan when I should change. I should kind of flush the oil, put the new oil back to the system, and ensure that I can kind of avoid a catastrophic failure for the gearbox. If because of such failure happen, the entire gearbox gone, which probably call for a many days of kind of a maintenance, machine will be down for a long time and call for a huge monetary investment there. So I think such type of topics to have with the technological trend that you see to make the gearbox as optimum as possible, number one. And we also talked through that cost has to be as minimum as possible. We also know that safety factor has to be close to 1. And we can only do that keeping the goal of zero downtime. If you can live way, can always monitor the optimum performance of that gearbox during the life cycle. Probably this can be managed, the business can be managed much more better. So for example, from our company, Schaeffler, last week, we have launched a product, condition monitoring system for uptime. Is typically being looked at as a country-less India, Southeast Asia market, where cost is one of the prime factor as a rock bottom cost, rock bottom price. Looking at this Indian customers' buying power, can you develop a product which will fit to the local customer price pocket and the performance need? Considering that factor, we have just launched a condition monitoring system, and which is currently there into the market. So those are some of the product we are currently working on to solve the problem. Part number 2, Mr. Sheshagiri talked about that. I think to build a basic infrastructure of product engineering in India, I also see a lot of issue, a lot of challenge. When you're talking about to develop a condition monitoring system for India, I also looked at typically condition monitoring system to work, you need some power. You need the sensor, some kind of electric power to be given. So you also need a battery or some source of power. So there is also maintenance for that to change the battery at a particular time and things like that. So I am also kind of looking at for India, when you're looking at the zero maintenance topic there, can we design and develop an energy harvester who can harvest the energy from the gearbox, convert into the pulses, and that pulse can go to the signal to the sensors. Now, for a dynamic condition where the RPM changes, gearbox changes very rapidly within a short amount of time, in the globe, not only India, in the globe, such type of energy harvesters are not there. So what I did probably last 6 odd months, I'm talking to IISc Bangalore, IIT Chennai, talking to them, can you develop a India specific energy harvester which can solve our local problem as a energy harvester for a condition monitoring system? I also faced the same problem. There had been an N number of meetings we have been talking through. Even the best institution of the country like IISc Bangalore and IIT Chennai as well, the time to develop the product, the cost, the confidence, I think the long way to go would we have the independent local confidence that yes, India also can kind of build some local product which not only solve for the country, also solve for the world. So I think there are thinking process out there, but probably it will take some time to build that R&D independency from India.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mandal, for your insightful thought on this. I would still like to be continuing with you, especially on the electromobility part. As you know, electromobility is gaining traction with government incentivizing electric vehicles. So, Mr. Mandal, what will be the effect of e-mobility on the gearboxes?
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. Okay. Well, or rather our company, including myself, we have been working for a e-mobility topic for quite a long time. We have developed a lot of product and the system all across the world. So let me share my perspective. If you look at the technology changes, technology trend in a passenger car, in automotive segment in India, typically for India, it is very clear that EV or battery operated vehicle are making significant progress to coexist along with IC driven vehicle for the country. Both will probably coexist in the foreseeable future. That's very clear. There are a lot of complex problems. Still, the vehicle manufacturers are working to solve the problem. For example, charging time. Today, if you have to charge a vehicle, you need to stop the car for 4 hours to charge full, close to 90%. Do you have time? If you go to a petrol pump, you can fill up your gas within a minute's time. You have time to stop your car for 4 hours. So like that, there are a lot of problems, a lot of issues industry that's still solving. But you see a significant progress as the India is concerned. Typically for a two-wheeler and three-wheeler are making significant progress to migrate towards the EV technologies there. Now, in the old days, probably when a lot of experimentations were happening for a battery operated vehicle technology, at least for India, there had been a myth. There had been a myth that if you're talking about a IC engine to work optimally, IC engine, the band is very small. If you're talking about a BLDC motor, which is the permanent magnet motor, the operating working efficiency is very wide. So in that case, I might not require any gearbox there. Since the operating range is very less for IC engine, I will require a gearbox. In this case, motor has got a wider efficiency range, band is very high, I will not require a gearbox. That's the kind of a myth we had, and a lot of experimentations was kind of happening at the initial phase. And with time, with several experiments by automobile manufacturer, technology supplier, tier 1 supplier, and things like that, and they had made to some extent a conclusion, kind of a learning. Transmission is going to be part of the automotive system as long as we have existence of a battery operated vehicle. That's very clear. Okay. Now the topic is that, now do we need such a big, gearboxes that we see that are IC driven engine? Answer is no. The typical learning that we had so far, the world, including India, has learned there is a need for a gearbox, there is a need for gear pair, even for a battery operated vehicle. That includes two-wheeler, three-wheeler, passenger car in a heavy commercial vehicle as well. But those gearboxes are either with a single speed or with a 2-speed. Okay, so the number of gear pair would be less, but there will be a need for a gearbox. But the typical challenge is not that number has come down. The challenge is that this demands a different technology. The kind of gearing technology that we typically go for a IC driven engine car, and a demand for a gear that we need for a battery operated vehicle needs a different technology. Now, if you go back to the IC engine car, you'll see that the engine makes a lot of vibration, a lot of noise and vibration. If the gearbox makes noise and the vibration, that gets compensated by the noise and vibration coming from the engine. So as a driver, I do not feel uncomfortable if certain noise vibration coming from the mechanical gearbox, because those are getting offset by the IC engine, the vibration and the noise. The time we're talking about a BEV, battery operated vehicle, which is typically driven by the motor, at the end is the motor, which is the completely noiseless. Demand is that how we can develop a gear which will have a zero noise, no noise. So NVH is one of the most important parameter that every BEV vehicle manufacturer looking at. And I think the people, they have built up certain technology. They are the pioneer, and there are a lot of pull we see in the market. The vehicle manufacturer going to them to access the technology and the product, who has got a technology access to make the gear or design the gear which will make the least impact on the NVH. Now, NVH is one factor. There is one more factor. One more challenge for a battery operated vehicle is the weight, because the battery itself takes quite a wait time. And the more weight the vehicle becomes, the range getting impacted. There is an anxiety on the range in one charge. So the weight of the vehicle has to be as minimum as possible. And gearbox being a lot of metallic component goes into the product as a whole. So the gearbox weight will become a challenge. So did we experiment with a different material than a steel material, also meeting the similar life, similar performance? That once again, demand is continuously coming from a battery operated vehicle manufacturer. Do have some success stories that is alternative, less weight material, simple material, zero noise and vibration. Can it address this problem? At the same time, there is a third part as well, because if you're talking about the mechanical work efficiency, probably for an industrial application, that is not that very critical. The time I go to the passenger car for an automotive application, the losses, the frictional losses plays a very important role there. Because currently, if you go to the different norms like BS6 norms, which is on road now, the next norm is coming as a CAFE 2. So there will be more stringent norms coming in India for an automotive segment, where the losses has to be seen very critically. So the people, they have got access to technology, their product can deliver with a close to zero losses as far as friction is concerned. I think they will become the front runner in terms of the winning the race to get successful to the battery operated vehicle. So there are kind of this kind of a broad level, kind of a trend we see. And then in a long run, the time we move beyond the battery operated vehicle in long run, we're also looking at the fuel cell. The hydrogen fuel cell is a technology that a lot of experimentation is happening. And this has got every ingredient that the different constraint we have on a battery operated technology, like filling up time, you have to battery charging time, battery cost time, battery cost as a whole of the product and things like that. And then, the lot of dependency on China because raw material for battery you need to import from China. So those are some of the problems getting offsetted if you have access to technology on the fuel cell. So fuel cell, I think the last week or rather 2 weeks back, India has already published a new policy, a new norms called AIS 147. And that norms is talked about a part of a CMVR. It talks about that the safety requirement for a fuel cell or automobile application for India. Okay, so India is also showing a lot of concern, a lot of policies are getting formed as an alternative to a battery operated technology as a hydrogen fuel cell. Now, in a long run, when fuel cell takes over or maybe coexist along with the battery, also this does not make any threat to current gearbox architecture for an automobile application, because that will become a threat for the battery, not a powertrain, because that will be a power mover. The hydrogen fuel cell will become a power mover, will give the power to the powertrain in term to the motor so that the battery or the vehicle can run there. So the primarily in a broad level, there are two takeaways from this kind of a topic that I talked about there. Yes, gearbox or the gears are coexisting as far as the road automobiles are concerned, whether you're talking about battery operated vehicle, hydrogen fuel cell. But the point is that number of parts will be less. But the thing is that the current technology that we have is not going to solve the demand that is coming from a battery operated technology vehicle, because low noise, low NVH, less weight of material are the demand which will be strongly coming from the market. So people, they have got access to this technology, they can support with this technology, they have got every ingredient to win the race as far as the battery operated vehicles are concerned in next 10 to 20 years.
Mr. Kawale, will the gear machining process undergo changes due to e-mobility? What's your take?
Yeah, now e-mobility is a big subject, and we have been talking for last few years. As Mr. Mandal rightly said, IC is not going to go out of the market, and they're going to coexist. When we talk about e-mobility and the gears, definitely there is going to be a change in the process of manufacturing. As Mr. Mandal rightly mentioned, one of the important criteria is going to be noiseless gear or gearboxes. E-vehicles, there are not going to be there's no noise is going to be there. Then how do you manage your gearbox noise or gear noise? And that is what is going to make the change in the process of manufacturing the gearbox. As I mentioned earlier in one of the questions, that in automobile, most of the gears today are finished with the hobbing process. DIN 7 is quite accepted, except few manufacturers who are demanding, particularly for passenger vehicles, gear ground gears or shaped gears. But as we go for e-vehicle, where the noise is going to be minimum or very, very less or no noise, which we call it, finishing process is going to be very crucial. Maybe honing, or maybe, I don't know, new technology which people are working on, which will come out, and that's what is going to be the future process. But one thing is very clear: it is gears which are required in e-vehicles. You need to have those finishing processes. You need to have those capital equipments required for the finishing processes. Obviously, your capital investments are going to go up, and the number of gears requirement is drastically going to come down, because the whole gear train or transmission box is going to go out, and maybe there are 20-30% of the gears which will be remaining in the whole transmission line, and that is going to make a big change. And the people today who are involved in gear transmission manufacturing, the components for the gear transmission, they're going to really get affected with this change. But I think we have to be ready for that. Every day the technology is changing, because still a lot of learning has to happen, and the e-mobility, still things are many things are fluid, still solidified. Many issues are there which has to get resolved. I think it will take another 5 to by 2025 to 2030 for it to be very crystal clear, and we really move forward fast on the gear e-mobility. That's what I can say, because Mr. Mandal has very clearly mentioned what all the different things, what are the different issues which are going to come up, what are the changes are going to going to go through. I think that's all I can add into that. Thank you.
Mr. Muthusekhar wants to come in.
Yeah, I agree with what Rajesh mentioned. The cost of the gear, especially when it is avoiding grinding, because grinding is a very costliest process in gear making. It constitutes about 30% of the cost, because it involves heat treatment and it involves grinding. So it's about 30% of the cost. So in the electric vehicles, if it can be only on a hobbed finish, or if it is only on a gear shaved method, then the cost will come down on the gears. But if the electric vehicles have to be really successful, I think Mr. Mandal will accept that it has to be thinking beyond lithium. It has to be low storage, low cost of storage of energy. I think that is going to matter a lot. Okay, lithium is available in certain countries like South America or Australia, this kind of countries. Lithium is abundantly available. I don't think lithium is not a problem, but the cost of storage, I think that's going to really matter a lot for the success of the electric vehicles.
So,
Mr. Can I add one more important topic, which you see a big trend on this perspective? We're talking about a mechanical gearboxes, mechanical transmission. We are now kind of debating on a battery operated vehicle transmissions coming to the forward. There is a distinguished demand is coming from a customer's perspective, that I don't look at you as a supplier for a mechanical gearbox manufacturer. I would like to look at you as a mechatronics gearbox manufacturer. Okay. So this gives a new dimension for us, as a food for thought for us. So how long we'll continue to manufacture gear and become a big player into the market? And what are the focus areas I should diversify, so I also can lead and dictate into the marketplace? So mechatronics is a game changer for tomorrow, whether you're talking about a battery operated vehicle, talking about a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, talking about a hybrid vehicle. And we also see that as day progresses, industrial gearboxes, there is a demand that gearboxes needs to be more intelligent. We talked about, the IoT based kind of a processes now. So there is a demand, the gearbox itself needs to be more intelligent. That intelligent only can be made if you convert the mechanical gearbox to a mechatronics gearbox. So that's a food for the thought for us, where we need to pump in money, and what competency I need to build it up, so I am much on time when there is a strong demand coming from the market.
Yeah. So already, gentlemen, we are across 4 o'clock. I think we will have another 15 minutes. So the rest of the questions, I think we can take it very quickly. So automation is another aspect which is becoming an omnipresent across industries and is also increasing. So Mr. Muthusekhar, what is the effect of increasing automation in industries on gearbox market?
See, automation is used in vertical storage, in automated storage, in guided vehicles. There are many areas in industries automation is required, but it is a chicken and egg story. If the demand is more, then people go for automation. If the demand is less, there is no point in investing for the automation. Today, if you look at the Indian GDP in terms of manufacturing, we have less than 1% of the manufacturing GDP comes from the automated industries or automation. Even if you look at the robots sold last year, 2019 sale worldwide, India stands in number 10 place with the sale of 4,300 robots sold last year. But whereas you see China, the robots sold was 1,40,000 robots sold in 1 year. So where is 1,40,000 robots and where is 4,300 robots? So the automation, we are a long way to go. I would always say that automation is the key for going global. If India Atmanirbhar, and if we have to go global, if we have to do a lot of exports, I think automation is going to play a major role in terms of consistent quality, in terms of cost of the product coming down. Of course, it will also give a lot of new types of jobs.
I was talking about the impact of automation on gearbox market in terms of the types required or in terms of demand increase.
Yeah, in case of demand increase, today we have automated plants like what Mr. Mandal mentioned. We also Nord has intelligent drives in terms of geared motors. It can decide what kind of load is coming, what optimum speed it has to operate. It also has a predictive maintenance. We are all having this kind of products, Industry 4.0 ready products in Nord. On the same time, contrary, in manufacturing also, we have completely automated a plant, especially in Poland, in Germany. Nord has the plant completely automated, right from raw material to the finished material. The entire plant is automated.
Okay. Mr. Seshagiri, what's your thought on automation and its effect on demand for gearbox?
Well, automation is the way forward. And as Mr. Mandal said, it has to be a mechatronics-based transmission. In the automation, you have several kind of movement, not only a rotary output, you got a linear output, you got an angular output. All these are possible when you have a mechatronics also involved in this, number one. I just want to go back to the previous one where noise is inherent with the gears, but most of it emanates from a misalignment fundamentally and a wrong gear manufacture. The only two major issues, unless the bearings give you a problem, which is less and less likely. I think these two points can be addressed or developed without worrying about what is the cost. I think we should not start doing an R&D with the idea of saving the cost. I think that is fundamentally we make that error. A composite materials are going to cut down the noise, especially the harmonica type of noise which comes out of a gearbox. It can be cut down easily by designing the gearbox with alternate material. As far as the gears are concerned, I've been a manufacturer from almost primitive days to now. I somehow feel in this country we don't have the right material available for a person to buy. Let me buy a raw material. I still don't understand why I should check the chemical composition, mechanical strength, everything. I do a lot of defense work to fire the rockets and missiles, and I always wondered how much of time we spend. We just don't get a raw material to its specification. Mind it, these are all stringent specifications, but as defined in the catalog, I cannot get. If I was in England, I can rig up and get EN19, let's say condition T. I will get the material. I don't have to check and recheck and recheck. This is when we talk about high technology of electric mobility vehicles and go into such a fine details. I think we should fundamentally ask, is India geared up to supply to the manufacturer the right kind of material without having to multiple level of checking? This is one thing I always wondered. How much of intelligence you can have with each industry and how long it will last with the man who retires, it will go away. So the system should take over. I feel there must be a concentrated effort to make anything available. If you buy a bearing, I mean, we go by the let's say Schaeffler's trademark. I don't go and check the bearing quality. It makes no sense. So when you are talking about such high technology end product, which will be disruptive technologies or going forward, we should address the basic issue of raw material. This is my take. And
yeah, Mr. Bise, what's your take on, especially from the end user perspective, on the topic of automation?
Yeah, as I responded to your earlier question, that only conventional way of the gearbox will not be the future trend. Basically, we require to have this combination of mechanical and electronics coming into the picture. And when I say this particular mechatronics kind of solution, this can cater to all kind of automation, and in fact, it can initiate various openings for the gearbox market. Let me give two examples, because in electromech cranes, we do have the database and some 15,000 cranes on the floor and at various customer places. So if suppose we get an indication and we can get a portal which can be given to the system. So for example, if I say about the artificial intelligence, so when it comes to the condition monitoring, it is nothing but giving the excellence to the portal and the platforms of the service maintenance. So when we have these particular sensors inbuilt onto the gearboxes, which gives an indication to me about the noise, which can give an indication about me about the temperature. So subsequently, the condition monitoring as well as the diagnostic, that is the predictive kind of maintenance, can be ensured at our end. So that's how we can support to the various customers, and we can build in the more features related to the automation related to the gearboxes. Take another example where we can incorporate or initiate some kind of thinking related to, you can say, the augmented reality. So the augmented reality is coming into the customers at the various products. But if you try to adopt this similar kind of thing into the gearbox industry, so the gearbox in the gearbox industry, what we can have is it's just similar to the VR, that is virtual reality, that we can have this particular thing put on, and we can able to do the assembly of the gearbox. We can able to do the maintenance and the troubleshooting of the gearbox, and that's how we can improve upon the uptime of the gearbox. So giving all these kind of the instances and giving all these kind of concerns, the automation related to the VR, the automation related to the AR, artificial intelligence, will add further value, and it will give and open up new market for the gearbox industry. That is the take which we are having, which will beneficial for all the stakeholders in the industry. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Bise. So we are coming to the closing, and we have only one question to all of you. So what is the key trend, or what you can say the key highlight, or what are the emerging trends which you think will define the gearbox industry's future? And I would call upon each individual to share his views on this particular thing in 1 minute. So I would like Mr. Seshagiri to start with.
Well, I really foresee a great improvement in the material science and the heat treatment. Already a lot of new things have come up in the heat treatment. And going back, you cut a gear to DIN quality 7, as Mr. Rajesh said. To retain it closer to that, you require a very good heat treatment. And tribology has increased a lot in the gearbox operation. Today, a gearbox can run at a much hotter temperature than what it was 3-4 decades ago. There are a lot of composite materials are being developed on the gear housings. I feel these are the changes that will dictate the future gearbox industry.
Mr. Muthusekhar?
I see that 3D printing will take place for producing gears. I don't know whether Mr. Gavle will accept this or not, because it's directly the machines are not going to produce. The reason being is very precision gears and high number of gears I think 3D printing will be the new trend in terms of producing gears. And I agree with Mr. Sheshagiri in terms of material. I think there will be a significant change happening in the material. Of course, there are some nylon gears, there are some different plastic type of gears. This all has already been established, so this also will take shape. But one thing is for certain is what Mr. Mandal pointed out is mechatronics, and that's what Mr. Bise is also looking for. The intelligence, artificial intelligence, and robotic kind of operations. So it can decide on its own how to operate. So it can give optimum efficiency. Plus, also it will give a predictive maintenance. It will give you a information saying that this is the time you have to pour the oil, or this is the sediment which is the scum. So all this would happen. It's already happening, but it will come in a big way. I think that is going to be the real trend which is happening in the gear industry.
So, Mr. Mandal, what's your take?
Well, I have a broad perspective. I believe that as long as machine will exist in the world, there is no threat to the gearbox per se. So gearbox of the machine will coexist in the many hundreds of years to come. That's number one. Now, whether tomorrow's gearbox will be the same gearbox that you see now, the mechanical power, to take the power, to take the torque or take the rotation from one place to the point number two, will it happen like this? Or probably we would look at the gearbox from a different perspective. I believe that, we already seen in the market, every machine, if you see any machine in the world now, right from your cell phone to any machine you see in the world, the machines are becoming more smart. So no more is a machine that people will give a input to let the machine know how the machine should behave. So machine has trying to build a intelligence by its own. So portion of the machine thinking or the people's thinking will be done by the machine. And we have already seen last 2 decades, there are significant improvement has happened in this periphery, that a lot of machines that you see into the market. Now that means when you're talking about a modular function, complex modular function like a gearbox, can the gearbox would be the same gearbox that we have been seeing for last 100 years? No, it also has to be run in parallel to the smartness machinery we see in the world. So that means the gearbox also need to be more smart. We don't probably be happy having a mechanical gearbox with maybe making more lean, increasing the working efficiency to the maximum. I think that maturity level we have reached for last hundreds years of kind of experiment. Now there will be a quantum jump to make the machine more intelligent, so that the machine can think by its own for its own performance and give the right signal to the right place, so that it can be integral part to the smart machine for tomorrow. That's the way I believe that tomorrow's gearbox will be way forward.
Yeah, Mr. Bise?
Yeah. In addition to the point what Mr. Sheshagiri mentioned about having the advanced metals to be used in the gearboxes, the point which I mentioned earlier related to this particular AR system or the AI system, artificial intelligence system, or the IoT, which will give a better edge as far as the smart gearboxes are concerned, because it will be the part and parcel of the entire machinery. So this particular gearbox in isolation can't be worked as a mechanical, so it has to be mechatronics, and that's how this particular aspects will be looked, and that will be the trend for the future. Now, in addition to that, what I mentioned about the portal, which will enhance the feasibility to utilize gearbox more appropriately to handle the gearboxes and to maintain the gearboxes. So whenever we are giving this particular kind of flexibility to the users in terms of the portals which I mentioned earlier, that's how we can ensure the data security. That's how we can ensure the spares readiness and the quick response to the customers. That's how the entire automation, smart thing, and the advanced metal plays a role to improve upon the power to weight ratio, which will be the future, and that's how we can get more advanced trains in the future. Yeah, thank you.
So, Mr. Gawale, what is your take in terms of changes in the manufacturing of manufacturing process for gearbox?
Yeah, definitely there's going to be a definite change in the manufacturing process. I do not know whether 3D printing will take that thing, but I'm 100% sure that there's going to be a definite change in the manufacturing process, and that will lead to the technology in gear cutting and gear producing machines as well. So I think that's the take for me.
Yeah. So with this, we come to an end of IPF Gearbox Roundtable. I would like to thank all our eminent panelists for their time and also valuable insights on the subject. Before we close for the day, we would like to inform our leaders that IPF 49th annual issue will be unveiled in the month of January 2021. And thank you once again to be part of this roundtable. So see you next time. Till then, stay safe, stay healthy.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks all.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.